wesn, I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
The fluid retention occurs in the lungs and you get short of breath, particularly with exertion. And it's a particularly condition where when lying down, they feel short of breath and have to use a lot of pillows. That's a sign that the shortness of breath might be due to heart failure.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me.
respond to you?
How you would respond to me?
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
WESN.
a Roman Catholic, one of the things that, of course, is difficult for me to speak about, read in the news, watch in the news, or just internally assess the situation myself when it comes to certain accusations against the church. Now, there's some, you have to understand in any organization, how much blame do you give the organization and how much blame do you give the people in the organization is always going to be a subjective thing on a case-by-case basis. But at some point, you know, the buck stops at the leadership of the organization. And of course, if it's a pattern of behavior across multiple leaders, then you have to ask why, and then you have no choice but to look at the organization itself. I say all that to say, I don't necessarily want to come across as someone who's going to shy away from topics that are personally uncomfortable. So of course now there is a situation in the papers where 5 men are accusing the state and I believe the Roman Catholic Church of failing to protect them against sexual and physical abuse at a children's home between the years 1986 to 1997. I am familiar with this home because I was once part of an organization that did work with this home by providing activities, to put it very simply, to the boys, and I think it's girls, I can't remember if it's a boys and girls institution or just boys, of this home. It might be just boys. I can't remember. Because at some point there were multiple homes that this organization was working with at the same time. So forgive me. But this one, St. Dominic's, was the first. And it was one of those harsh reality check situations. At the time I was maybe in my early 20s or younger when I first were introduced to the young men in this situation. And essentially, young men and young women, and essentially what we learned was that these are not easy places to grow up, to say the least, and that's without sexual abuse. Now, I'm not going to say that the young people that we interacted with were physically abused. The allegations come before, but it was just not an easy situation overall. That is partially due to the capacity, the capability, the proficiency, the skill set of the individuals who had to actually interact with, oversee, treat with, discipline, take care of, supervise the kids themselves at the home. There were situations that we got impressions of, some of us, that we didn't really have a capacity to do anything about. That it's not necessarily abuse, but it was situations where, are these the best people to mind children? Because I believe in St. Dominic's, it starts at young children and goes up to teenagers. At least it did. Now, with regards to something like sexual and physical abuse, now the question comes into play. I think they are basically accusing that it was one individual, a former employee, who committed these acts. To what extent were these acts known by his co-workers? To what extent did the overseeing authorities fail to oversee the situation, have checks and balances, hold people to account, ensure nothing untoward was going on? Now, given the date, we would not have had any sort of secondary effects coming from other situations. Let's put it that way. Sorry, the lawsuit says the offenses were between 86 2005. Did I say that? Yeah, not 1997.
One victim said he was abused from 86 to 97, but it's from 86 to 2005. So I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this because I don't know what active role the church had. And I don't know where the church's responsibilities end and the state's responsibilities began. Maybe it was the Roman Catholic Church that had the bulk of the responsibility. Maybe it was the state. Maybe the whole situation was set up like the AMA and the TTPS, where no one knows who's responsible and it left a gap. And somebody exploited that gap. I don't know. But this is not the first situation we've had where our children's home has had allegations of abuse. And one of the things, because I believe a lot of these institutions, at least that we worked with, there were not a lot of orphans or children who were given up for adoption. A lot of these situations were children that were removed from their families for whatever reason. And the point is, we're going to be capped if we do not have the capacity to deal with difficult circumstances for kids properly, responsibly, carefully. Then now when we do have situations in the schools where kids go off the rails because of a whole host of pressures, influences, etc., that are all very negative, that many of us probably never had to deal with. Some of you, maybe you known somebody that did, maybe you did yourself. Most of us probably didn't. There will always be situations where you can't leave certain children in an institution with other children that are not going through what those children are going through, that are not influenced in the way those children are influenced, that are not acting out in the way that those children are acting out. That's not to say that you have to, any child that acts out, you need to sequester them to some other location and treat them like prisoners. No, but there will always be extreme situations where the disruption to the rest of the school isn't worth it. And also, you kind of need to take them out of such an environment and treat with them in a very specific way. But things like this suggest we can't do it. Things like this also suggest that as much as we lament, oh, the old-time days and look how bad things are now, these accusations start from 1986. And like other situations in children's homes in this country where the accusations run deep, there's a lot of ugliness that somehow we willfully ignored in years gone by. And now it's coming to the forefront, and we might think, oh, I mean, why is there all this violence now? Maybe it's because we ignored too much ugliness back in the 90s and the 80s and maybe the 70s. And the consequences of that, it's not that it grew into a larger issue of the same, but rather the emotional trauma potentially, and more importantly, the callousness, the unwillingness to treat with situations, but rather sweep them under the rug, close your eyes, cover your eyes, and hope that it disappears. The fact that you're leaving an element of lawlessness which could then influence other situations of lawlessness to foster, to persist even. All of these things are chickens coming home to roost. Because the foundation of our nation, as one caller points out, I'm not here to attribute political blame. The foundation of our nation is probably not as strong as we think it is, because it relied on a laissez-faire, informal attitude to get things done. And in some things it worked. When we were a smaller, less complex society, because things just got complex as time progressed, right? There's no way around that. But when things were less complex, perhaps it worked. When times were simpler, perhaps it worked. But it didn't work in all cases, and this is suggesting one example of one type of situation where it didn't work. It didn't work because people rather hide the ugliness than treat with the ugliness. And I would argue that is a modus operandi, a pattern of behavior that you would see right now, where there's situations that society, not just the politicians, would rather brush aside or ignore because it's too hard to deal with it, and then just, you know, dish out low-hanging fruit and placate the population, who is more than willing to be placated without then having the, oh no, it's a sign that they're going to solve the problem. Why? Why do we have to speculate that they give us a crumb and that means that eventually we'll get bread? Why? Why can't we say we will believe in the bread when we see the bread, not when we get some crumbs? Case in point, let me move on from this before I go on, but I'll just say this. As a Catholic, I don't necessarily want the church to get away with anything. I want transparency. Let the chips fall where they may, because part of the reason is, as a believer, I'll say that, not necessarily a great, diligent, practicing believer, but as a believer, one of my issues, and this goes for many religions, is the incredible capacity to shoot oneself in one's own foot. Now, here's the thing about religion. Religion is not a necessity. It is a choice. You choose to have it or not. In fact, it's kind of baked into the whole concept of a proper religion is, dare I say, this is my philosophy, the requirement for one to make one's own choice for oneself. Otherwise, do you really believe what you're saying? Do you really believe what you say you believe? And controversies like this that are allowed to go unresolved is a very good way to push people away. It's almost not too dissimilar. It's practically like politics. And a lot of the errors are some of the same errors. But speaking about giving crumbs, I saw two stories from the PSA this morning. The first one, I wasn't necessarily going to go too hard in the paint on it, right? The PSA is apparently looking to try and get 26 employees reinstated. Their contracts weren't renewed, which the HDC is saying the workers are surplus to requirements. This is why I wasn't necessarily going to go hard in the paint on this story. Because this is just a basic example of the union's interests, and this, in this case, the state entity's interests, are not doing this. They're doing this. They're apart. They're moving in different directions. And that is a basic philosophy with regards to the union is not going to be aligned with its employer 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 100% of the time. It's just not. But then, of course, and that wasn't necessarily a big deal, you know, that's just normal. We have a thing that we would like, you have a position that you want to do, all right, you negotiate that, that's fine. But then now, there's a whole other story where, and I didn't read the full story because I wanted to get to this part here, where the PSA now throws a torpedo into the whole situation with regards to the 10%, asking if the chief personnel officer was given a mandate to block public servants from getting their back pay by Christmas. Now, part of it is, one of the questions that we have to ask in this situation, and I'll use this as an example for other situations, is how reasonable are the expectations, right? I'm not saying the expectations aren't reasonable, you know. I'm literally asking the question to ask the question. Is the PSA correct to be upset? Was it a reasonable expectation that all of the wage stuff that they wanted settled by the new administration that they supported, regardless of whether they supported it or not, right? Is there a reasonable expectation that it be done in time for Christmas? And then you have to take into account, okay, the financial situation of the country, which we on the outside don't know exactly what it is, right? We don't know what the opportunity cost of dealing with the wage negotiations now would be. So we don't necessarily, will never fully know unless we get a whole set of information dumped on official records. But to say that the CPO, the PSA is automatically right, I'm not going to say that, but I'm also not going to say that they're automatically wrong either. What I am going to say is, these are your people, right? The president of the PSA went on a political platform and directly endorsed the UNC in the general election, which is something that I could be wrong, but according to the constitution of that union, that might not have been proper, but I could be wrong. I couldn't find it specifically when I tried looking for it, but anyway. But these are your people. The PSA president did the whole song and dance. When UNC wins, everybody wins. Now, I have no issue with this if the reasons for it are practical reality reasons. The problem is, she's saying she's getting radio silence, and I'm saying radio silence is never a good sign, even though it'll be hypocritical of me to say, oh, pay the people now. I understand it's a campaign promise. But I said up front, I don't know if you could afford this. I don't know if we should try to afford this. So this to me is just confirmation that we probably can't afford it right now. We probably can't afford it in the time frame that the PSA wants it. So is the PSA's demands reasonable? Maybe not, but by this radio silence, don't want to talk, want to obfuscate things, and leads the PSA, and maybe the PSA is playing politics, to basically say, was there a mandate to stall? Well, you gotta wonder why maybe the government is being made out to look shady, or maybe they are acting shady. Acting shady doesn't mean that anything untoward is happening, huh? It just means that we're uncertain, but it looks as though, because it has the hallmarks of previous patterns of behavior. So, everybody winning. And I'll just end with this. Everybody winning like the TNT Nationals in Sierra. Everybody winning. I don't know what the right answer is now, right? I'm not saying the right answer is just automatically bring them home. I understand people have their concerns. I get it. I haven't delved into that. And it's not like I have the case files on the individuals who are there, right? I'll just say this. I think this is an example of a failure to act. One of many, on many issues. And I do wonder, does anyone just ask themselves, was this handled properly? Could we have done better for these people? How certain are we that this is the best thing? Because this is talking about people's lives in a way that we will not want to have our lives affected. Again, I'm not saying not bringing them back is automatically wrong, bringing them back is right, but just the way how they've been dismissed and been left in exile. If it was you, that's one of the litmus tests. It's not the be-all and end-all, but if it was you, what would you want? I don't know what the correct solution is, particularly now, given the current time frame. I just hope that it's a discussion at the very least we're willing to have. If we're going to condemn these people to exile, let's do it debating the issues, not sweeping it under the rug, like we sweep other things. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have the good lady. Stay tuned.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The Community Hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
As always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems, and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that
actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated.
A lot of people don't know that, there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
The fluid retention occurs in the lungs and they get short of breath, particularly with exertion. And there's a particularly condition where when lying down, they feel short of breath and have to use a lot of pillows. That's a sign that the shortness of breath might be due to heart failure.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Michael Small here, joined by the good lady herself, Karen Nunez-Shera, well, I went on a long rant with regards to the argument that was presented by a couple of ministers of government. I was beside myself with how nonsensical it was. And Karen is here to peel back the layer of nonsense to technically make it make sense, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good or not. Well, and we're still speaking about, because Lord have mercy, one Minister Roberts decided to go international with the Bmobile, which is to some extent at the very least. And I'm thinking it's wrapped up around, at least partially, the whole Venezuelan U.S. situation and that. But Karen has a different perspective to share with us this morning. Karen, good morning. Welcome to Talking Point.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. Yes, well, it's still in the news. It's making the news cycle still. And so I don't think we're in a position to let it go. But what I really wanted to bring to the table in a way that I don't think I had really explored last week was the fact that I am not of the view, based on reading in more detail the decision of the High Court judge. She was a High Court judge at the time. She's now at the Court of Appeal. That the idea, or what is being said, that the civil remedies or taking civil action has been is not an option, and that the only option is the criminal investigation, which stalled and even stalled under the former government, which I personally cannot understand why. But so that's what I really came today to speak about, and I really think it is very disgraceful of Minister Rudal Munilal to support Minister Anna Roberts. He was the former Minister of Housing before Anna Roberts became one of the ministers in the Ministry of Housing now, to support him with regard to the nonsense that he has been projecting to the national community. And I'm quite sure that the reason for that is to deflect. It is a clear case of deflection, because he does have questions to answer, but it's not only that he has questions to answer, but I want to put it on the table that the question of the civil courts not having any jurisdiction to hear the matter is not correct. At least some lawyer is going to come and tell me that I have read that case, I have not read that case properly. So why am I saying it? So you hear, and I've also heard him say, I mean, it's disgraceful, but I think it is because he wants to distract. He wants to distract from himself. He's distracting from himself. You have the video?
Oh, yes.
I want to show that first before I go into more details.
So some of Minister Roberts' comments, we have a short edited, well, it's edited to be shorter, but it's a couple of minutes long, just to kind of hear some of the allegations that came, whether, obfuscated or pointed, from the minister himself. Let's run the clip.
Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, did you disclose to Trinidad and Tobago to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and to the people of St. Vincent and CARICOM, that when you are speaking, you have received, your family has received great benefit from the PNM. And to the members of the PNM, to Keith Rowley, and to the former ministers of housing, and those hired by the PNM to conduct housing policy in Trinidad and Tobago, where after 9.5 years, a paltry 4,775 houses were built. The list of applicants waiting and begging for housing in Trinidad and Tobago now stands at 214,000 citizens. Do you have something akin to the Integrity in Public Life Act forms in St. Vincent? Did you declare these 3 assets given to you, gifted to you? You luckily, your family so lucky, luckier than Trinbagonians. 3 out of 3, 100%.
For the interest of time, there was a little bit more to the clip, but for the interest of time, he goes on to basically, there were a couple things there that made me wonder if he could be sued for defamation, because he started to make accusations, but they weren't totally pointed specific accusations.
It doesn't matter. If there's a test of defamation, and you know, there's a lot of cases on that, and what they use as the test, applying the British definition, is if the man on a Sunday reading the Express, actually they use the Express newspaper, would read it and come to the reasonable person would come to the conclusion that what he's saying, that they got a benefit which other people who are waiting in that system, 214,000, and got a benefit because of their association with the PNM, that he is making an allegation that is absolutely not true, and he knows it is not true. And if when he said it, he thought it was true, well, he is in the Ministry of Housing, and he knows it is not true. Okay, so I just want to briefly speak to that, and then I'm going to go to the case.
Just before that, I also want to bring up, because I thought about this yesterday, apparently someone told me the comment section from people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines over this matter is very negative to Ralph Gonzalez. So will that factor into any assertion of, yes, this negatively harmed him, but I assume any court action would have to be in Trinidad, though, right?
Well, yeah, but that's the purpose of it, because he knows there's an election. Why does he go for an interview? Because he doesn't want to give the interview because he knows that he will be unmasked for the lies that he's telling.
This is Anna Roberts.
Yes, because he said, oh, he doesn't want...
Roberts, sorry.
He doesn't want to give an interview because right now they're into election. You didn't know that when you said what you say? So just quickly to recap, he is not speaking the truth. The truth of the matter is, which he knows because he reads and he knows it is a fact, that those units of which he is speaking went on the open... You know what open market means? If I'm a millionaire, if I have 10 houses, if I'm not a Trinidadian, if I live in Kwaito, wherever I'm living, once I have the money, I could get it. And you know why that happened? Because your government, in its first incarnation under this current Prime Minister, made the decision in 2010, 2011, to upgrade those things to the point that it was out of the reach of the 214,000 people you are speaking about. You did that. You did that. You have to take responsibility for making that decision. Because when the PNM left office in 2010, the spend on it was in between 200 and 250 million. You added 350 million by all the wonderful things that you added. Who on that 240, that is for people subsidized house, and you knew that, your government knew that, and they made the decision. So you left the HGC now in a situation where they had to cut their losses because they would never recover all that they spent, in addition to having to maintain the development and all those costs that are associated with that. So a decision was made by the PNM government to put those 200, of the 264 units, 206 on the open market. Anybody could have bought it. And they bought it in 2018. What are you talking about? Why you keep on saying these things that you know are not true, man? You know, I mean, I'm ashamed of you, to be honest, right? I'm ashamed of you, but you know, I'm not surprised. That's the truth. But in having said that, You know that. Stop talking about it 214. I'm going to talk about subsidy, how you all created that situation. You all created that. You all spent $350 million more on that development, putting it out of the financial ability of your subsidized housing. And even having done that, you still could not recoup all the money that was spent. So when people bought those units, they still couldn't get them sold. You doing as if there was a rush to get these apartments. There was no rush, you know that. Former Minister Randall said, Randall Mitchell said in 2016 that decision was made. From my understanding, none of the units that the Minister Gonzalez's daughter or his wife or his son bought was in 2018, after it was on the open market. Stop saying things that you know are not true. And just let me finish, please. And on top of that, on top of the fact it is on the for anybody to buy, whether they had 10 houses in Trinidad, 10, it doesn't matter. When you buy a house, anybody, you, Mr. Minister, anybody, you think I have to go, if I'm buying on the open market, all you want to make sure is I have the funds. That's what you want to make sure. And the funds are not money laundered funds. That you should make sure about that. That's all you would need to know. You don't need to know anything else. What are you all talking about? Keep on talking about subsidized housing and it's 240. You know you are doing that. You are so, that is not right what you're doing. And they bought it in 2018 after it was on the open market. Why are you talking about his wife having a place in Diego Martin? Why are you saying all that nonsense when you know it is not true? And on top of which, and I'm saying that you all caused that, you all created that problem, yet you're going and misleading the public. You know that you should be ashamed of yourself. And then Moonilal come in, Minister Moonilal come in and backing you up with that nonsense. And then you come in and saying that the people of, that you don't want to give an interview to the St. Vincent people because they're in an election. You didn't know that when you were saying that? You didn't know that's what when you were saying that? And I am telling you, I'm not asking you, I said it already, and I'm going to repeat it. I know as a fact, that the UNC, certainly under Pandey, and I will have to imagine that has not changed, that they actively supported the opposition against Prime Minister Gonzalez in elections. They came up to St. Vincent, they were living in houses that were provided for them, and a whole set of them came up there to advise the opposition, which lost. I'm not asking you, I am telling you. So when you come and tell me, telling the public that you don't want to interfere with their elections, well, I am not in a position to say what's happening today. I will not venture to say that. But I absolutely know that the UNC has done it in the past and has been facilitated with houses, with them coming up and helping the opposition, which lost in any event. So do not say that I can say without fear of contradiction. So this brings me to why you are doing it. Some people speculate that you're doing it, I don't know, some people say Venezuela. I don't think it's that. You know why you're doing that? Because you have questions to answer. You have questions to answer, and I am going today to go back and look in a deeper dive, as they say, at the case that was brought. There were 3 cases, which we know that none of the cases that were brought dealt with the substantive matter, the merits of the case, whether there was sufficient basis to charge or to find liable certain persons in high place, which would have obviously you would have been somebody they would have considered because you were the minister and you were the one that introduced the program. And you know what's the telling thing? You have never been interviewed. You were not interviewed by the committee set up by Minister Hawaii when they were in government under the People's Partnership. You were never interviewed, and you still have not been interviewed based on what I read in the papers. So let us go to the case. And that is what you are trying to distract from, because you are the one to answer questions. You are the one that need to be interrogated. You are the one that has questions to answer on live sport, okay? Because the 2 cases that were heard in which they were successful was with the E-beam, which I said last week, I think, Donaldson Honeywell, where she was able to say, and it's in the evidence of this matter that was brought, which I'm going to be looking at in more detail, that 2 checks for $70 million each, $34 million in all, were issued to Mr. Daniel, who's now deceased, of E-beam, to provide all these facilities of training and so on. Not a stitch of work was done. How you explain that? And of course, Justice Donaldson clearly did not accept that that you could pay money up front, sole tender. Why don't you explain that? Why don't you explain? Forget about the Gonzalez family. That is just trying to deflect. And anybody with, you being objective, that's just deflection because you have no case. You're making up a case that has no case. And your prime minister supporting you that? And she's not telling you to shut up like how she told, what's his name, Philip Alexander, to stay in his lane, right? Well, I don't know if, I don't know. But she's not telling you to shut up, right? Deflection, because it reflects on her too. She put you back in there in this rounds. So it reflects on her judgment, the boss said, Prime Minister. So what I am saying is, let us see why you do not want us to talk about it. Because you know the two cases, one, Donaldson Honeywell, she had to determine whether the award of that contract to you, to E-Beam, to Mr. Daniel, which two checks of 70 million, paid him in advance before he did a stitch of work by sole tender, if it should be set aside and the money repaid. And she determined that something would have been done, but 30 out of the 34 million was to return. Why don't you talk about that case? And why don't you talk about the next case? When the government of this, the former government, brought a matter against the directors of live sport for breach of their fiduciary duty. And it said it's somewhat of a precedenting case because the judge said that you cannot turn your blind eye to obvious cases of irregularity, obvious things that you had to have known that something was wrong and was not above board. It's 400 and something million, they say, went down the rabbit hole, And they turn a blind eye, and they said, you can't just say the minister told you, then why are you there then? No wonder people say that when you have a board, they're just a front, but that's not their function. And they were ordered, each of them, to pay $40,000 for breach of their fiduciary duty. Those are the two cases that have been heard. And the third one, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and to show that you have questions to answer. Stop talking about Mr. Gonzalez and his children. You're just a non-case, and you know that, right? You know it's a non-case. So what is it that I am speaking about? So the case was brought first. They filed the case on. This is Ashwin Creed, Cornelius Price, Theodore Charles, Ronald Barkley. But the one I'm really focusing on is P.S. Creed, who was the claimant. And then they brought the matter and they had to amend it to take out the Central Audit Committee. They just said it's the members of the committee that were made as defendants. And that was Lester Herbert, Inshan Mohammed, Nisa Churaman, and Kem Karan Kisoon. So P.S. Creed brought a matter against the commissioners and saying that the audit decision that they came to, the audit report, should be quashed because of failure to follow procedure. But this is key. So he asked for a number of declarations. One of them, which is he did not get, this is key, he did not get it from the judge. This was the fourth remedy, a declaration that the failure of the Central Audit Committee to specifically inform the claimant before the making and or publishing of the report into the life support program of the respective adverse allegations, not the declaration, sorry, my mistake, is number 9. An order of certiorari, that's the one, I'm sorry. An order of certiorari quashing the audit report of the Central Audit Committee made and or concluded and or published in relation to the operation of live sport. Now, the order of certiorari only applies to public or state bodies. And what it does, and they did not get it, you see how broad it was? It didn't say quash it on the basis of procedural wrongdoing. Quash it completely. And an order of certiorari, when I looked it up again, it says an order of certiorari made and concluded and or published. Oh yeah, that was the decision. So when you look at what an order of certiorari does, an order of certiorari, when you read the impact of an order of certiorari, it has the effect of completely quashing all the report itself. They wanted the judge to quash the report, completely close it down, don't bring it back, end of the story. And she did not make that decision. She did not make that remedy. So to say that the matter is not still alive in terms of a civil proceedings is incorrect. But more important, look at what you find now when you go through this case. When you go through the case, very, very, very telling. Minister Hawaii when he appointed the Central Audit Committee, he gave them the instructions to investigate. While they were investigating, the date we need to focus on is the 16th of July 2014. And at that meeting, which was investigative, P.S. Creed, Permanent Secretary to the Minister, said, I would like an opportunity before you finish your final report that I get an opportunity to answer the adverse findings that will be contained in the report before it is published. And the head of the committee said, yes, you do that. That's the 16th of July, 2014. Guess what happened? The next day, or maybe the same day, Herbert got instructions, I want to report right away. Wonder why. Mr. Anna Roberts, Mr. Doubles and Coffee had not been interviewed as yet. No wonder he could say they have nothing against you. They didn't interview him. And P.S. Creed didn't get a chance to say anything. Because the next day, wonders of wonders, Hawaii told Herbert, I want to report on my desk on the 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Look at that. No interviewing of Minister Anna Roberts, no opportunity. And in fact, the investigative committee said that the reason why they did not give Creed an opportunity to answer is because the minister wanted to report right away. Why? You have to ask yourself why. Didn't you want to hear what Anna Roberts had to say? Did you want to hear what P.S. Creed had to say? He wasn't interested. Not interested at all. Apparently not. Because guess what? On the 25th, the Prime Minister, in accordance with the Cabinet note approving the appointment of this committee, published a report in Parliament. Nothing about Anna Roberts, nothing about interviewing him, nothing about P.S. Creed giving his response, nothing. Why did the minister rush the committee when they said they were not finished? Why did the minister rush, not allow P.S. Creed to say something? Why? And they said they were not finished. Why? Why you don't ask Anna Roberts to talk about that? Stop talking about Gonzales. You know, that's St. Vincent business, right? And we have already established that it's just you're trying to create something out of nothing. That's a classic case of deflection. Let's talk about you. Because at the end of the day, in the report, these are the things that the investigative committee found that nobody said was not true. All of this they said was none of the things. I'm trying to find some of the things that they said that they found the report. Don't remember, the judge is not there to deal with the substance. She's there to deal with, is it true, as P.S. Creed is alleging, that his breach of natural justice in not being given an opportunity to be heard before publishing the report so that he could respond to the adverse findings. And the court said it really would not have mattered whether they would have still come to the same conclusion, you know. But they're saying you have to give him a chance to be heard. And also, was there not a legitimate expectation of P.S. Creed that would have happened, given that the chairman of the committee had given the undertaking, yes, you will get a chance to respond before we publish a report. Why did you do that? Mr. Anna Roberts, why don't we talk about that? I find we should be talking about that. Because when the judge made her order, she only made the orders two orders that she gave, which is what you asked for. She made the order of the declaration saying that the committee had acted in breach of the legitimate expectations of the claimant, and it had breach of the rules of natural justice, and they will fail to inform the claimants before they publish a report of the adverse allegations and findings made about them. But you know what she did not make? The order of certiorari. She did not make that. And they asked for that, you know. This is what she said, though. She did not make the order. This is what she said at paragraph 78. In my view, there was a breach of the claimant's legitimate expectation. And on that ground, it is my view that the report should be quashed and remitted. You hear that word? You know what remitted means? Send back. Send back. And remitted to the committee for the purpose of acting as they should. So it was not, the report was not quashed. It is dishonest to say that. This is a matter that was brought under the Judicial Review Act. And judicial review, the usual consequence of a judicial review, if it is successful, is that the court will quash only on procedure. They do not look at the merits of the case. They do not look at the substance of the case. They have not looked to see whether Mr. Roberts acted improperly, because he was never interviewed anyhow. So they don't look at that. The remit of the court is to say, and the fact that the judge, Dean Armorer, Dean Armorer, who's now a Court of Appeal judge for some time, did not give them the order of certiorari, which would have had the effect of completely quashing the report, but said that they had to go to remit it. Why was it not? And why is the minister, don't talk about that, stop talking about Gonzalez, talk about you, talk about why it is that your prime minister and you didn't, why didn't your prime minister, after she had to fire you, and you gave an unsigned letter of resignation, why is it that your prime minister did not have the committee sit down now and hear Creed and interview you? Why not? Why? Answer that question. I find that more important. I feel this thing about Gonzalez is just to distract us. And what really does bother me, Sean, I have to say this. Now, I even read in the papers that they gave the impression all civil liabilities will complete. That's not true. And that's not what the judge said. She said remit it. So don't say it's not over. And then acting as though now it goes before the only for criminal prosecution. Now the problem I have with that is, why didn't the PNM government follow through with that? Why didn't they do that? They sat on there for how many years and did nothing about it? This is 2014, 2016 that judgment was delivered. They had 9 years and they didn't do anything. Why? And then now you're reading, I read in the papers that they said that not even the police in the criminal haven't interviewed him as yet. This is 9, and people saying it's too late. He's not. Oh, why? I find you should be answering those questions. That's what I want you to tell me. Why? Right? That's the question I want you to answer, because it's $400-something million they're talking about. You know, this is not no 4.8 million on houses, which was not true. You know, on the open market. I mean, it's just a fiction. But you see, you want to distract. And in my view, unless you've changed your allegiances, you want to help the opposition, and then you don't want to get an interview because it's before, it's now election time. But then why are you talking about it? Why are you talking about it is because the audit issue has reared its ugly head again, and you need to be a man of integrity, and your prime minister with the bus-head talk, who has you in her cabinet, making bacchanal. I mean, I think former Prime Minister Rowley put it very well. He said, you are an agent provocateur. Very nice way of putting it. But you are the person, a rabble-rouser, to distract. But I am not distracted, and I hope the people who are supporting, taking a position with the government, please be objective. Please be objective. I mean, why ask your MP, ask your minister in the ministry, of which there are 3 of you, ask him why it is he was not interviewed. Please, I want to know. Stop talking about Gonzalez. Stop talking about him. That's chump change compared to what we're talking about there.
Chump change, exactly.
Chump change, thank you.
Even if there was something there.
There, yes, they like to
right?
see you.
You're talking about, we have an issue about 3 townhouses that at best might be, $2 million a piece, right? All of the demand, all of the need for housing, there's 113 units unsold.
Yes, exactly.
This year, before the election this year, there's 113 units unsold. We're not talking about when it was 2018, when the Gonzalez family apparently got it. One of the things I just wanna clarify that from before, because he says subsidized housing. Like, to me, I've never heard of subsidized housing being used for $2 million apartments.
Yeah, but you know what, Sean? It is subsidized. You know what? Because you know why it becomes subsidized? It can be subsidized because one is HEC, because it is being sold under the HEC banner.
Right.
And it's become subsidized because when they added all 350 million,
they couldn't make money back.
Couldn't make it money back.
Yeah, but that's subsidized by, that's not subsidized.
I know.
It's not an actual subsidy, but it's subsidized by bad management.
Not really bad, it's beyond bad management, right? Bad decision making. Right? So what you're doing, it is subsidized. But guess what? Not to these 214,000 people. It's subsidized because the government had no choice. This is the PNM government to go out on the open. And guess what? 130, they could not sell them. They could not sell them.
This is after trying to sell them
yes.
at whatever price they did between...
And in fact, what they found out too, and I want to read the thing about what they found, what the claimants did not coming back to the audit finding, because the...
Oh, just by the way, this great benefit, by the way, at least one person from the HDC has decried the construction quality. So I just would like to point out, this is the great benefit. This is the great benefit, right? So...
let us not, you know what, let's leave the Gonzalez thing. I want to deal with the audit.
Right, I just want to say, the reason, I can't believe we are back here, but look at this. When the PNM were in power, one of the things that constantly flabbergasted me was the fact that they would distract us from one controversial situation with another controversial situation. Yeah. I'll never understand why anybody thought, oh, this is better. We'll distract them with a bad thing, with another bad thing. But here comes Minister Roberts.
He brought it up in the...
He is going to distract us from his bad thing with an international now dialogue incident of Bacchanal, also pointing a direct arrow towards what, not just at him, what happened with this HDC project now? Did it lose money? Now we have to ask ourselves, how much money did it lose? I wonder if
how did you contribute to that?
I wonder if it lost more money than anything close to what is alleged the benefit or not. I don't know how it's a benefit to spend my money on something on the open market.
Not only that, but the 400-something million you said that it was, you cannot account for, that's that. And then 350 million, they went and spent on it to make it out of the price range of the 214,000 things. So they created and they brought it back on the front line. He, in trying to attack Gonzalez, has made people like myself say, you know what?
Exactly.
Made me now say, you know, I never really looked at it in detail. And I just want to say this. These are the things that they found, and the claimants alleged that the report said. And no, but now remember, the substance was not the issue. But nevertheless, they said these were the things that the report contained, right? There were widespread breaches of proper procurement practices. The approval given by cabinet was not strictly adhered to. Persons at the coordinating level may have been involved in criminal activity. There were several instances of fraudulent activity by suppliers to the program. There may have been widespread theft of equipment from the program. There may have been breaches of the Proceeds of Crime Act. Exorbitant and questionable payments were made in several instances. There were poor control and monitoring of the program by the Ministry of Sport. I find, Minister, you should be telling us about that. Give an interview in the man. And my Prime Minister, you said, but said for them, take him out your government and let a reconstituted committee, let Creed give his evidence, all of them, all of them, and let your minister, or if he's still your minister, let him talk, because he brought us back on the front burner, you know, not me. He is the one trying to attack Gonzalez in an election month, brought us back and telling things that he knows and they're not true. And in fact, the one thing I should mention, because the price, or because they weren't getting them sold, they got advice. And they got this advice and they implemented the advice very late, I have to say, on April 7th. But early in the year, they got the advice from the real estate agents. Listen, we're not selling these units. Then nobody's buying them. We still have them on our hands. So the decision was made to lower the price. So in fact, that lowering of the price, that decision was made on April 7, 2025. But from my understanding, all the units that were bought by the Gonzalez family were bought when the prices were higher. So if they had waited afterwards, they would have benefited from the lower price. Now, I don't know, and that is what I will say. Two things I will say, because I like complete disclosure. I did notice in the form, I'm giving Anna Roberts some fuel, but I want to be full disclosure. I did notice, and he did say that the son did not have a Board of Inland Revenue number. When he applied for me, he got the unit. And he should have had one because it's rental income that he would probably have gotten it unless he was living in a unit, which I don't think he did.
Right.
He did not reside here. I think his sister did, but not him. And so that is something they do need to answer. And second thing that does come up and needs clarification is that rent-to-own arrangement. Because something says to me that the new arrangement where the prices fell, I don't know. I can't say. I'm really not in a position to say that. And I don't want to be accused of doing the same thing that I'm accusing others of doing, keeping out what doesn't look good. I'm saying that and putting it on the table. But the real issue here is that I believe that Anil Roberts needs to be answered for what went on, because there's no question as the minister that he needs to be interviewed. The matter should go back to to a newly constituted committee, and that the persons on that committee should interview him, interview all these people who said they didn't get a chance to respond, and that the criminal proceedings that they are taking, that they should also interview Anil. He was the minister. It was his brainchild. So we need to hear from him. And I really do believe that he's using the Gonzalez issue, whether it has any merit at all, and certainly has very little at all, to distract from issues that he should be able to be answering. And he brought this back up on the front burner, not us, not me. I just became aware when you started this full-scale attack on them and feeding information to people who don't question you. They say, oh, that is not right. They're using, imagine these people are even not from here, and they're getting subsidized housing. That is not right. And 3 units, wow, that is right. So, you know, you're doing as a service, and your prime minister, you know, to encourage you or not to discourage you, let me put it that way, not to discourage you from what you are saying, and a minister, the former minister, to come on your defense and saying, yes, go ahead with that. I mean, what does that say about you? We're tired, you know. This country's tired, you know. We're tired from the PNM with every, you know, something coming up. Oh, the barrier. Have they paid this barrier? I see some people.
Yeah.
When I passed by the Paria headquarters around in Savannah, I saw about 3 or 4 people with their little placards. I couldn't read them. But you already want to criticize the PNM for not paying the $1 million. Have you paid it? Have you paid it? I mean, you were so gung-ho about they didn't pay and it's the suffering. And I agree, they have suffered. But make a good, you know, they can still pursue legal action, but make a good faith payment to them. Why haven't you? Unless you have made it, then, and I'm sure if you did, we'd see it all splashed on the front page.
I have a question. Let's pull up the second comment, if you can, with regards that's onto this, because it goes to the rent-to-own thing. So the UNC is unable to defend their position. This is the commenter on the house sales on the open market are now attacking the renewal of the rent-to-own arrangement with Mr. Gonzalez's daughter. I cannot see what is wrong if the renewal was granted, given that she's still continuing to be a non-ending student. Now, my thing is this. According to one report, there are other rent-to-own situations. It's not like she's the only one. So I'm just curious, what is so bad about it in this case? Because I'm not too sure. You see, this is the problem. When you listen to Minister Roberts, he's making it sound like this is an HDC project to give houses to people that need houses. This is a high-end project. What about subsidies and allocation? There's no allocation there. There's no question of, wait, we're allocating? There's so much demand that they have to draw lots to buy these things?
I think the rent-to-own, what I read, what I understood, that many of the persons who were under this rent-to-own arrangement were owing thousands of dollars.
Yes.
I don't think that she is one of them. So she was not a delinquent person. That I understand. But the rent-to-own, in a sense, is giving a sort of, making some sort of accommodation for HDC applicants who are at the higher end, people maybe police, teachers, and so on, whose income, as how I understand it, to qualify, you have to be a Trinidad and Tobago resident. I mean, you have to be a Trinidad and Tobago citizen, unlike the ones that were put on the open market, which is what the son and the wife got. So to get the rent to own, the conditions are you have to be a Trinidad and Tobago citizen, which she is. You have to be resident in Trinidad for a minimum of 5 years, which she is. She's a student here and has been here many years. And the third thing that they require that she must be resident and over 21 years, which she is. So the qualifying requirements, she met them. And the other thing that they said, which is why it is a sort of in-between arrangement, they said that these units are being offered to persons who are able to come within 100,000, the ceiling is 100,000 of the cost less. They have $100,000 less than the qualifying amount to buy one of those units. So if the unit was 1.3 and you had 1.2, you're qualified. If you had 1.3 it was, and if you had 1.1, you would not qualify. So those were the requirements, and I believe she met the requirements. What I think may have happened, and maybe I should not speculate, but I just got the impression from what is in the papers that this rent-to-own arrangement was already in place, because what the rent-owners, I understand it, is that you're renting and with the intention after 5 years, if you have been making your payments and you're in a better position, they will continue it for a minimum of 3 years again, and then at the end of that period, if you still can't afford to own it, you will then turn into a renter. But the idea is to take part of the money that you're paying as rent and part going towards ownership. And that is it. It's not just, it wasn't unique to her. So this is the thing that I'm not sure about.
You see, because the thing is, I understand if it's a different HDC project or it's for low-income housing, that's the intention of the rent-to-own, right? To help facilitate that. But in a situation where the units are $2 million and they're not selling, I wouldn't be surprised if so many agencies like, look, let's take a tool from another basket and put it into this basket to try and get sales.
It's like, the units will, these are, so the point I'm making with that
I just think this is a business move, and we shouldn't think the rent-to-own in this situation is a low-income thing like with other HDC projects. It's not.
And she did qualify. She qualified, and I don't think she was in any way delinquent. But what I think may have happened, Minister Anil Roberts wants to give in my view, giving the impression that, oh, no, we have nothing to do with St. Vincent politics. But I know the PNM knows differently and believe that they know differently. And perhaps what they did with giving her the, renewing the rent-to-own just after the election, when you could do business, because she qualified, not that she didn't qualify, is perhaps they felt that if they had the discretion, they would not have given it to her because of the because of the change in government. Because we know governments do that. And I'm not holding UNCPNM, but that is a reality, If you're not on their side, boards change.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the reasons why they rushed it through was because they knew that although she qualified and had done what she was supposed to do, because they had dropped the price, they had just dropped the price on the 7th of April, that maybe it was beneficial for her to enter into a new rent-own, which would have made her at the lower price. And that is the part I am not in a position to answer. I want to say that because I don't want...
So it might not even have been at the lower price.
Right, but you see why I'm being careful about that, Sean, is because I do not want to say what I am saying about Anil Roberts and what I'm saying about their government. And it is a continuing issue with them. I would like not to be accused of you withholding something that would not make it look good. But what I am saying is this: that was a distraction, and Anil Roberts, the $400-something million that went down the drain, the $350 million that your government put in and put it out of the price range of the 214,000 people that you subsidize housing. You need to answer, and it is not true to say that they cannot have the committee reconstituted and let us interview him. I want to hear what he has to say. I really want to hear what you have to say, Minister. And I want to hear it on Gubbles and coffee too.
Well, I mean, I expect... It's very telling. Think about how many interviews parliamentarians give. Just think about that, right? Whether it's opposition, government, ministers, non-ministers, senators, representatives, think about the lack of interviews, right, from our politicians. Think about the fact that most news media now is being driven by who? By outsiders. And then what do the politicians do? these people don't know nothing. These people don't know. Karen doesn't know what she's talking about because she's not in there, blah, 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 blah. Well, part of that might be true. Yes, there will always be stuff that we don't know all the details of. But a lot of it is you're not actually willing to speak to everything or to speak to interviewers and reporters in some cases at all.
And I forgot to say this. You know what makes it even more distasteful? Minister Roberts, and for your Prime Minister too. Of course, we don't need the kind of language, you know. We had it with Dr. Rowley. I mean, part of the reason I think they fell out, the PNM fell out, his leadership is critical. And you know, the language he uses was bordering on the course. I mean, you know, I don't tell you which man to put in a bed. I mean, what you saying that as a Prime Minister, man? And talking about your golf course, and you have to, oh gosh, all that kind of vulgarity. So the point I'm making is, you have used the most crass and most vulgar language, and the CARICOM, not the CARICOM as a community, and matter of fact, what they've said is that they're staying quiet because it's so distasteful. But sometimes when you don't respond to somebody, it's to show you the kind of what's the word that you would use, not distaste, but beyond that you don't think it is worthy of a comment. But one or two of them have commented. And one of them, who is not Gonzalez, has said that in all years that they have been in the CARICOM, they have never, ever, ever heard a minister or member speak in the manner in which Annie Roberts speaks. They said they have never heard that. And they said on top of that, another person who is a member of, or had been a member of CARICOM said, you know, you are not the Prime Minister. There are different levels within the CARICOM. There are Prime Ministers to Prime Ministers. Then there's COTAD and all these different committees, which will be headed by Minister of Trade, and all the Ministers of Trade in CARICOM will be on that committee, Minister of Finance, all of that. But you are not even the Prime Minister. What are you doing talking like that? And talking in that vulgar? You are no longer an influencer in the sense of you are in the government. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand? Listen, you know why? This is just my opinion, though. Barack Obama, why do you think Barack Obama was so respected? Because we're not talking about fed, you know, because people can be fed, but not respected. Okay, there's a great distinction. People are afraid of a person, so they don't want to cross them, and they toe the line. We know about that, even in this country. But when people respect you, that is not for sale. You cannot buy that anyway. It's not, you can't buy it. And Barack Obama was one of the reasons that people held him in such high regard. Whatever other errors he may have made, is the manner in which he conducted himself. He never went, I mean, I know the famous statement, but I think they're going to backtrack on that. When they go low, we go high. But I know they're not doing that anymore. They're going low with them too now. But the point about it, that is why people, that's why he was returned to office a second time. Because he conducted himself in a manner that people had nothing but respect. What are you doing? You are not doing damage to yourself, you know, you're doing damage to the people of this country with that vulgarity. So I would like you to tone it down. I'd like them to interview you. And I'd like also the committee to be constituted, because that's what the judge said it should be. And she did not give the order that you wanted of Susharara. That is the creed on them. They didn't get that. I think you should, let's hear what happened, because there's too much money, not a little bit of money you're talking about in HEC, which you don't have a case in any event, making mischief. But we want to know about one that has a case and does not mischief, and was laid in the Parliament by the Prime Minister, causing you to give an unsigned letter of resignation, right? So I feel we need to hear more about it. There's plenty of money involved, because we still talk about, Piarco, and Piarco still in the Piarco scandal now. We're still talking about that.
That's still in the American courts, and the money, the
award. That was. Oh my God. So anyway, the point is, don't tell me so long.
Remember the old airport.
400-something million, a lot of money. Okay? So I think we need to hear from Minister Roberts, and the Prime Minister needs to speak. You can't sit down in the back and be very correct and proper and so on, and give this image of herself when she's allowing these people to go rogue.
The thing too is, people are very scared about the prospect of a conflict happening right next door, right? It's not in our living history of what something like that could mean. Maybe sometime in the colonial past, the British and the Spanish, you know, they traded cannon shots, you know, in our waters. But to say that Trinidad and Tobago as a nation understands what it's like to be next to a conflict, right? To be potentially within the area of the conflict. Now, I personally don't think on a practical level, you know, it's likely for us to be directly hit by anything. But at the end of the day, I understand that people are afraid because one, you never know what could happen, and two, we have no experience on how to deal with this. And to try to use something like this to distract, to in part distract that whole thing, because I do feel part of the appeal is Prime Minister Gonzalez has been speaking out with regards to the American activity in the Southern Caribbean, right? I don't get it. Because as Karen said, you have a situation over your head, and it's not a small scandal, it's a big scandal. And then on top of that, you're trying to point to what might end up being another big scandal, right? Because low-income housing became high-income housing all of a sudden, but we're trying to make it sound like there's allocations to be involved. And at a time when Karen is saying people need leadership, there was a situation where the joint exercises, people thought I don't know if it's American helicopters, that's what I'm saying. They thought they heard helicopters or planes overhead in the middle of the night. They didn't know what's going on. Because, I mean, just yesterday, some Yahoo on the internet again, and I kind of looked at it and I'm like, I was saying, oh, the Americans deployed something, attack is imminent, right? Some random YouTuber.
In the papers, New York Times published that there are 3 warships between in the Gulf. No, they say, well, okay, well, one said 3, one said 2. But the point is, where are they? They are in the Gulf of Paria. That is what New York Times reported. So, I mean, anyway, you see that situation. I say that's too dynamic, it's too fluid, and there are too many moving parts. So, I would not want to say too much on my part.
Right, yeah, but I'm just saying, at a time when leadership is required, what we're getting is bacchanal. It's not a good sign. We have Clarkson on the line. Let's take the call first. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, morning, Sean and Mr. Sheriff.
Morning.
You know, I find it so hard that we try to be so passive and try to be so, you know, not trying to say what it is, like they say. We're seeing what it is, you know, but we're still trying not to let the people know, well, no, this is not that. We in 1900 and we in 2025, we're not in 1903. You understand? We have all the AI, the how you call it, the Instagram, the TikTok. We have the whole world watching at us. And you know what I'm saying? Well, these people in Trinidad, they may be under some tranquilizing drug or gradualism that they're not seeing what could happen. You understand? And then we have a media now who trying to play it down. You understand? Serious thing, you know. This is serious business we're talking about, you know. One shot and we could be blown out of the sky. We encourage a prime minister at the day to come and take away sovereignty and bring people here, and we're still trying to say that that wasn't her cause. I mean, it's clearly to see that she went and she made some kind of deal. And now the deal seems like it backfired. Because if the President of the United States were to have talks with Maduro, what is going to happen to she? You feel the President going and talk anything for she? He's not going to talk nothing for she. You understand? And at the end of the day, she stands to be the biggest loser because Maduro don't say nothing for us. You understand? So what we really trying to do, we need as media personnel by now face the public with truth. If truth is the problem in this country, you know, for too long people have been lying to the people. And that is what caused us to be in this situation, you know, as bad as people would say Dr. Keith Rowley was arrogant and this and that. Sean, if you are children, Mr. Sheriff, if you are children, as bad as how much to love your child, at had times you had to board at them to let them know, hey, this is wrong. This is, and we come like children, you know, because all how Dr. Keith Rowley and Stuart Young try to let the population know, hey, this is what's going to happen to all you. You can't get 10%. You can't get this because we don't have it. They didn't want to see it, and what happened? At the end of the day, it's over 100,000 people now not working. That's the problem we end up with, you know. All because Sean, you might have your position about the UNC, Mr. Shearer might have a position, maybe about the PNM or the UNC, and we don't want to let the people and them know what is right. At the end of the day, this is what we have today. And we have to deal with this in a serious matter. This is serious business. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I just want to say, I don't disagree with the sentiment. I might disagree with some of the statements of facts. First of all, this gets said a lot. Exactly what is the one shot that's going to destroy all of us? I would like to know. What is the singular missile, bomb, weapon, munition? That's all, because I've heard this before with people. It's like, oh God, all it takes one shot and then we gone. It's like, what shot is it? Because as far as I remember, Russia's trying very hard to bomb Ukraine, and they've used, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of shots, and people are still living in the war zone. So to say that because I'm not saying one shot is going to be something it's going to be fine if a stray bomb or missile hits us, which again, I don't think it's likely, but it can happen, right? But when you say things, when you go beyond now and say one shot and we all gone, there will be a group of the country that thinks it is so dangerous that all it takes is one Venezuelan or American military person to sneeze in a direction and the whole country will vaporize.
I think what former Prime Minister Rowley said gave a different understanding of it. What I understood him to say is 60 miles off our coast, there is a huge platform operated by the multinationals, manned by real people. And if there was an outbreak of war between Venezuela and the United States, they don't have to come and bomb Trinidad.
Right.
But first of all, America will remove, or the multinationals will remove all their men from that platform. And having done that, then they become an easy target for Venezuela, because a lot of times when they engage in, from my little understanding, they are very strategic about what they bomb. And he is saying that if they were to bomb or attack that platform, that's the platform that feeds all the natural gas for our electricity, for the downstream industries, for LNG, and so on. And he says that will be a huge impact because on Trinidad and Tobago. So,
I'll just say quick, in 91, the Iraqis, they set fire to the oil wells, right?
That's
you
true.
throw a disaster. The idea is not to harm Trinidad per se. The idea is distract the Americans, cause an ecological disaster. You know, it will obfuscate the whole situation, right? And it will give them some reprise. I could see where a scenario like that can potentially happen. So I can't discount that, right? As much as I don't think it's likely, it is very possible. History says it is. San Fernando line, good morning, caller, on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
And good morning, Gary.
Morning.
Now, let me just interject with that caller from Claxon Bay. That one shot, Sean, and just that one shot that the caller is speaking about, if you look at Mr. Maduro's rhetoric against the government of Trinidad, the present government of Trinidad and Tobago, right? Let's say there is action by the U.S., serious action against Venezuela. The bomb started to fly. Remember, Mr. Maduro has already said that we are facilitating. And if Venezuela decided we are facilitating, and they bomb one facility, just one facility, they have the one offshore, Atlantic LNG, Phoenix Bar gas processors. That one shot upsets the whole economy of Trinidad and Tobago for years to come, especially if it's Atlantic LNG. So don't underestimate the one shot, and it doesn't have to be a straight, it can be deliberate. Because if they see us as an enemy of the state, because they think we in cahoots with the US, that's the one shot. Now, I listened to Mr. Ramnarayan saying that we don't need We don't need Venezuelan gas. I want to ask Mr. Ramnaran, what is our proven reserves right now? What is our possible and probable reserves? All those have gone down because we have not been doing any exploration. So he said, and he believes, that was his, he believes we have plenty, there are a lot of gas around Trinidad and Tobago in our territorial waters, in our economic zone. I want him to believe is not proven, probable or possible. Until we go ahead, until we start a serious exploration program again, until we have bid rounds that people are really interested in, our gas reserves are going down and going down. And we need to look at Bolivia, what happened there, and where they are now, because the natural gas had run out. This is a serious situation here. And I am not seeing any person in the government, in this present government, that's really looking at because this is until we have a diversified economy, this is our bread and butter. Natural gas is our bread and butter. And we just can't be kicking the can down the road, which is what is happening. We just kicking the can down the road to see what's going to happen later on. People in Trinidad and Tobago are uneasy.
Yeah.
I have spent the last couple of days, Sean, with a few of my businessman friends at their businesses, because this is what I do, at their businesses and at some of their homes, visiting them. And every one of them says they're singing the same song, that the people are uneasy, and because of the uneasiness, business is slow. I was last night. I was one of them who has a retail business, and we were sitting down inside, and he was telling me. He said the customers are telling you that they're afraid the country, that's the natural situation in the country, the uneasiness of everything, the crime, this situation with Venezuela are making people uneasy. And the Prime Minister, as the head of the country, needs to come out and say something to the population. Stop the press releases and come out and talk to the population and say, put some ease in some of the people in the population. My God. Have a good day.
All right, let me just respond to the thing about the statement you made that we don't have gas. Perhaps you weren't listening on that time when I did speak to it, because after the Prime Minister said we don't need Venezuela then and we don't need them now. So I did a little bit of research, and this is what I did find out. Not to go back over
Which was a follow-up to your initial stance on those statements.
Right. So I will just start with the 2.6 billion that Minister Tanku said that we had. And it was a shortfall of 1.4, a minimum, but we want is 4 billion to bring us back to where we could provide both the downstream and upstream with the natural gas, because there's definitely a natural gas shortfall. So using that figure, the 2.6, I think he would have taken into account the Mento and SIP, which came on stream earlier this year, April and May, before the budget was read. That would have accounted for the uplift from 2.3, which it was in 2022, to 2.6 when he spoke this year. So where would the rest of the gas come? I had already said it is proven. I mean, this is that's a fact. But it's coming on stream 2027, which is just around the corner. One of them is the Ginger gas field, that is BPTT's gas field. And it's one of their 10 largest global gas fields around global, obviously, across the world. And it's expected to bring to gas 373 million cubic feet per day. And then we have the Manatee, which Shell is going ahead with, made a final investment decision. And the deunitization, it's in our waters, the Manatee component. You go on Ministry of Energy's website. And 600 million cubic feet, that's already $1 billion. And then you have Coquina Manikin, which I think would give us about 300 million, 250, 300 million, and then you have Touchstone and Perenco, which would probably generate. In other words, we will make the 4 billion, and we wouldn't be in Venezuela's water, so we won't be subject to OFAC, the sanctions which America has against Venezuela, which then affects us. So we do have it proven. Those are proven, and they're supposed to come on stream in 2027, which is around the corner. And on top of that, the ExxonMobil. I would say that former Prime Minister Rowley is correct to say that they're trying to take, they can't take credit for any of the projects, by the way, okay? The ginger, because I went and did my research, as I like to do, and I went on the Ministry of Energy's website, and there's something called historical data. And the ExxonMobil had been awarded some of those blocks by the PNM government. Yes, it was true. So ExxonMobil, I won't go back over how much we have to be careful with them, and Venezuela is a good example. But that means that's additional gas, which is unproven, which is not on stream at all. But even without that, we have the 1.4.
Now, the one thing I'll say with Mr. Sanfano, the key parts of what he said of what I will agree with him is Mr. Ram Narayan should have given details, not just said, I think, right? Because essentially
he thinks
that we have gas. That's what he highlights, right? Basically, what Karen is doing is, Karen is doing the job of government public relations for them, because they can't do it for themselves. And look how deep she had to go to do it. She had the initial response based on the narratives that the politicians have been giving us throughout the years. Oh, we're in a bad spot, we need Dragon. She had the initial response, right? Then she had to go deeper. They didn't go deeper. She had to go deeper. Find out some of the values for some of the projects coming on stream in a couple of years. Embed could have said it, he didn't say it. Stuart Young could have said it, he didn't say it, right? Now, the Minister of Energy and the Prime Minister, Dr. Edith Rowley, they all could have said it, they didn't say it. We don't know why, right?
This is the thing, you know, they make me wonder, is the information I'm pulling out? Yes, I seriously, and also with Dragonfly, which is in their waters, and the Lauren, which has most of the gas, trillions of cubic feet of gas, natural gas. That is what made me do the deep dive. Is when I looked for the Dragonfly to see how much gas they add in, which I said last week or the week before. Phase 1 is 187 million cubic feet, and when they completed in the second phase, which I wasn't sure when it was going to end, was 350 million. How is that? Why is Dragonfly made to be so important to us? Yes, the 10.5 miles, I can see to that. The hibiscus platform, I can see to all of those positive aspects of it, but what is the price we've been paying? I don't want to go back all the reasons I said. So the bottom line, at this point in time, with what I have said, was a proven reserves of gas. I don't understand. I have to differ from what you're saying, Mr. San Fernando.
Well, no, this is actually where now, yes, on that account, you're differ. But I think you all are agreeing on the point of why isn't the government and the people in the NGC and the Ministry of Energy and Mr. Ram Narayan, why are they not going deeper into the details to give us a proper...
I'm not right, or maybe this...
Yeah, all of that, yes, maybe...
Or somebody on the PNM say I'm wrong. I want somebody to say I'm wrong, or I'm right. You know, I would like to hear.
I said this yesterday. This is in regards to the Victoria Keys issue.
Yeah.
I would love to be wrong. Let me be... I mean, with regards to a whole host of things, with regards to the unions, I would love to be wrong. Let me be wrong.
Really
Tell me I'm wrong. Now, the thing is, with regards to the one shot, I understand, Mr. Sanfano, I know what you mean. That's a very, very practical situation. The wrong piece of oil and gas sector being hit would be bad. And the war in Ukraine would inspire an attack like that, right? The Gulf War in 1991 would inspire acts of sabotage or malicious acts like that. But I think a lot of people, their fear is not on that level. They're not thinking about the economy down the line. They're thinking, oh my gosh, one shot and I will blow up. And my issue is, if that is allowed to permeate in the national conversation, it will just add an undue level of stress that we just don't need. I have no issue if we're stressing out for practical things. I do have an issue if fears are just being stoked.
But let me just say in regards to that, that's all I would want to say on that. You know, there's this thing called gunboat diplomacy. And what the gunboat, and I expect part of what we're seeing is a version of that being acted out now. And that is what America would have done in the Latin American countries to bring compliance. was that they would line up a lot of their military naval assets outside on the sea, on the coast of those countries that were being difficult. And just the fear of America attacking them, I mean, they could not defend themselves against an attack. If America decided to use its naval capacity and its military capacity, it brought compliance because the idea was they weren't going to strike. They just were going to make you so uneasy, so fearful. Are they going to strike or are they not going to strike? And if they were to strike, we do not have the capacity to fight back. So the point I'm making with regard to that, the unease that we are speaking about, I believe it is deliberate on the part of it. And I just want to say this, I am not, look, I just went after Annie Roberts and what is nonsense. So I just try as much as possible to be true to you. That's who I feel I have to be true to you and be true to my children and my grandchildren and the people of this country. That's who I feel is who I have to be true to. So on that point, we have to be realistic. You know, look at the words that are being used by Dr. Rowley. He's very careful about his words, you know. I don't think they're going to launch an attack here. And him to say that they could launch an attack from Trinidad. No, I don't think they're going to allow them to land thing, but not if they're launching anything, and they're going to be off of Trinidad and Tobago, which is a different thing from what you are saying to the public, as I understand it. And the other thing too is, you had to sign that SOFA, not only the normal SOFA that other Caribbean countries have been signing, but you did an amendment to it, which you did not want to speak about. And the Newsday did an article on it. And they said to provide intermilitary support. And it was far more far-reaching than the normal SOFA arrangement. And it came from the fact that we are right on the doorsteps of Venezuela. So for you, and then you signed the Treaty of San Jose, which was, you only did that in December of 2024. 4 or 5 treaties you signed. And you did that one. And I think you had to sign it, just as how we are under pressure. And I don't hold any beef for Prime Minister, as you can tell. But I just try to say, well, what can you do? What can you do if America has had us sign that agreement? What you said is true. If we do not give them permission to land here, they cannot. And that is because of the whole issue of sovereignty. That is true. But it is not true to give the impression that that it is that we have given them permission to launch an attack from our country. I did not understand that at all. And also, it is something you signed. You know, that is the thing. You got so mad when yes, because I watched it. He asked you, could you tell us more about this? Because it's not just the normal SOFA. It's an amended version. It has no end date. That's the other thing. It has no end date. The Newsday did a good report on it, right? And when a reporter asked you, first of all, I don't think you ever let us know that you had signed it. You signed it on the 10th. I think you got cabinet approval to sign it, and you signed it on the 10th. But it is from my recollection, it was the embassy that let media know about those. You didn't let us know. And when the reporter asked you about the SOFA agreement and the other agreements, you appeared very upset. And you said, I'm not here to give a tutorial. You walked off his page. He didn't want to, it's clear he did not want to sign it. And in San Jose, which he says that we will cooperate with on the anti-narcotics. So that one dealt with narcotics, you know. The San Jose Treaty dealt specifically with narcotics. That one dealt with that. So what am I saying? I want to just say this other thing, because I did say I said to you that I was going to maybe mention it, and I'm going to mention it. And again, I'm doing no brief for anybody, because I'm trying to keep out. You see something?
Well, hold on.
You say something.
Out of time, so I don't know if you want to save it until next week.
No, it's very quick.
Okay.
It's very quick. Professor Knight said that, I know the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago now thinks that the Caribbean is not a zone of peace, but as President of Trinidad and Tobago's Director of the Institute of International Relations, when she's playing a completely different tune, I have the receipts in the form of recordings and videos of Ms. Kamala Pasabas praised Maduro and spoke glowingly about the future of strengthened TNT Venezuelan ties. It makes me wonder who is now advising the Prime Minister. Well, in all fairness, when she said that, based on my going back to the Ministry of Energy and looking to see what the state of play was in 2010 to 2015, there was no ginger, there was no humanity coming on stream at the time, and our situation, there was a 33% shortfall on natural gas. And at that point in time, I would imagine, not having a crystal ball into the future, she whatever line is up, but she still should now, but she has taken a position because at that time it was absolutely critical for her to do that. We didn't have the gas. Venezuela had the gas. We didn't know where we were getting the gas from. Now that she knows where she's getting the gas from, and America has been very accommodating, and I do think the arrangement with the fertilizers, I do think that there was some impact of her supporting. Well, I am not giving my position, but I agree, but I do think so, because most of the things are agriculture, cocoa, banana, we can't even grow enough for our own selves. We have to import that. And the reason why he lifted the tariff on certain agricultural products, because he says, we don't have enough in America, you are producing it, and so you want to export it. What we exported bananas, we exported avocado, we exported cocoa, we're not exporting any of those things. But what we exported is ammonia and urea, and America's a major market. So I don't think you could discount the fact that even though he made a broad statement, I do not think you could discount the fact that he made that zero tariff agreement with regards to the fertilizers, specifically for us in Trinidad and Tobago. And the others really don't affect us because we don't produce enough for export to America.
Now, I'll just say this. I think a lot of this is tied into our diplomatic position, where it seemed as though at one point, look, around the COVID years and just after, we were getting engagement with the Americans, we were getting engagement with the Chinese. Now, to me, Karen and I had discussions about Shell and BP wanting to leave TNT. Yeah. So I was like, why is China saying we're a resource-rich zone and blah, 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 blah. It seems as though our natural gas, oil and gas days are numbered, right? Are we that important anymore? Well, part of it is probably strategic thinking on behalf of both of those world powers, right? In the sense of, look, this situation, first of all, whether we like it or not, terrorism and to some extent narcotics, the American military has been looking at it, right? And of course, Venezuela is a situation where, it's a government that has controversial relationships currently. And it's going to be a strategic point of focus for both China and America. So we're right next door. We have a port. We have a safe harbor. We have an airport. We're going to be strategically important on some level. And we're going to be engaged. And I think Dr. Keith Rowley, he probably wanted to sign the agreement, but he probably didn't want the details to be put out there because then that might upset China. But of course, the American embassy,
Venezuela.
Right, but the American embassy is like, let them be upset. We want to let them know that we jumped ahead of them in this race, right?
Well, so Venezuela would be very upset.
So, and here's the thing now, with regards to the American deployment, I don't disagree with you, except on this. What is very interesting is that modern military costs are so much more than in the past. When World War II happened, the Americans, when Pearl Harbor happened, they had something like 30 carriers being built simultaneously. Some of the ships that fought World War II, they only had a life of 10 years. Now they have to invest in ships that are supposed to last for like 50 years or 20 or 20, 30 decades. Anybody.
No, because America made extraordinarily a benefit, extraordinarily financially from World War II and the Marshall Plan.
That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the fact that the cost to deploy these things now, it's not like what it was before.
Yeah, that's why.
So I think that by deploying more assets, I hate to say this, but the implication is they're committed to doing something. We just don't know what it is.
Who's that? America?
America, yes. Right? Because the price of doing it now is not like before, right? So every time we hear about more things being deployed and the specific things I see that gets my antenna up, I do get uneasy just like everybody else.
Can I respond just to say this?
Yeah.
When you say the cost to America, there are two sides of that equation.
Not to America, but the cost of modern military activity.
Yes, but the cost of modern military, you have to understand, and that's one of the things, the criticism they made of Bush and people that were his VP and people Junior, and I'm sure it's true what would have been said of Senior. America sells a lot of arms and military to the rest of the world. It is a multi-billion, maybe trillion-dollar business. So do not underestimate America sending arms and ammunition, military to other, because they make a whole set of money from that. So
I know,
okay,
but I also know that they've had issues with budget and maintenance.
I'm going to respond
that
to that.
have been published.
Yeah, but I'm going to respond to that. When it is, however, so they make a huge amount of money, but at the same point in time, if you are supplying this using your military force, your military equipment, and the party is not being able, you are not able to sustain it in terms of the cost is costing. That is what happened with Vietnam War. Vietnam War, that is why America abandoned the goal, because they could not pay the cost of continuing the war in Vietnam. But when you look at the Marshall Plan, when you look at World War II, that's when after the World War II, America became extra, and that is why the Republicans are known to be very much war hawks, because they make a lot of money from these excursions.
They made money off of the UK's Lend-Lease and Russia's Lend-Lease.
Right.
They made money. They made more. A lot of the money was made because you owe us for all of this stuff. Pay us back now. I think the UK only recently finished paying off that bill. Right. In this case, it's America going it alone, which we know how well that goes. But the last thing I want to say is this. Mr. Samuel spoke about people being uneasy and it's causing business to slow down. What is interesting, now this is, I have voiced opinions on this before, maybe not to the extent, because now we hear Hasely Crawford Stadium and I can't remember the other venue. You can't have carnival events except for the week around carnival, right? But here's the point that I do want to make. Usually what happens every year is there's this multi-month-long event called Carnival. It's not just 2 days. That does this great job at distracting the people from everything. But this Carnival, not only do we potentially have the largest events potentially now having to scramble to find new venues, also the price of alcohol is going up, right? The locals, the imported stuff should go up. I think some of them might have gone up already. I can't remember which one was first. I think the local excise duties went up already, and the import stuff is going to go up at the beginning of the year. The point is, alcohol is going to be more expensive this carnival. There might be less fetes. There might be more restrictions on fetes. It might have an impact on carnival. Whether you like it or not, that's besides the point. My point is, that whole phenomenon of the distraction of carnival, that is just like this great reset for the sitting administration to get people's mind off of whatever is going on that they want to not protest on but complain in the rum shops about, but they can't afford the rum anymore, so maybe they won't go to the rum shops anymore. That whole phenomenon of annually there's this big distracting effect is not going to be there, and I do wonder what that's going to mean now at a time when people are uneasy and we already have some amount of economic slowdown because of it, right? It goes back to, is everybody winning? I don't know. There was a comment. Don't bother put it up. I'll just say this. The comment didn't necessarily. It says I'm wrong. It doesn't say how I'm wrong, and it doesn't say how Soleil Gonzalez is wrong, and it doesn't say how Ralph Gonzalez is wrong. And I haven't been able to find it. So that's that comment from yesterday. We kind of spoke about the rental situation today, but I just wanted to specifically not ignore something that was brought to my attention. So I want to thank the callers, thank the commenters, thank Karen for joining me. Look, I want to encourage people. I understand this is a time where there's a lot of uncertainty and people are very afraid on multiple levels. Try not to let the whole thing just get out of control, right? Be concerned about what is practically, that we could prove, but let's not wildly speculate and allow that to affect our behavior. You could be concerned, but if you now kind of start to act in different ways because of it, hold on. We kind of, as Karen says about the whole US Venezuela thing, there's still a lot to see how this is going to unfold. My issue is we're just being stuck waiting here to see what's going to happen, and it's stressing us all out. And I'm trying to tell people, as the police have said weeks ago, just try and be calm, because if we stress out on every little thing, we'll have a heart attack, before it's too long, and it still might not be over, right? Nothing might still have happened yet. So, Karen, thank you. All right, folks, we're out. Remember, you're listening to Republic. Have a good day. Stay safe. Be nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.